Alrighty. All right, this is True News 365, and I wanted to get into a little bit of Bible time right about now. I wanted to look at, I was kind of intrigued in reading, and I came across this passage that, something that the Lord himself said, and I kind of wanted to talk about it because sometimes people have a hard time trying to figure out what this means. And, after listening to different commentators and reading it over and over and over again, I like to kind of express what I believe the Bible is saying about this. If you look at Matthew 11, this text here, where it says, is speaking about John, the Lord is speaking about John the Baptist, and he says, from the days of John the Baptist, in verse 12, until now the kingdom of heaven suffers violence, and violent men take it by force, right? And so, if you go up and you read, and it's talking about John the Baptist, reading out of the NSAB, it says, Jesus, tribute to John. As these men were going away, Jesus began to speak to the crowds about John. What did you go out to? Go out into now this, before this was the case, someone had come with a message from God to the Lord. John the Baptist had already gotten arrested, and John the Baptist was wondering. A moment of doubt might have come through his mind, saying he just wanted confirmation that you are truly the Messiah. But then the Lord kind of, I don't want to say that he disses him, but it kind of like sounds like he does. And it's not that he's dissing him, he's just bringing a clarification to the message back to John. And he says, when Jesus had finished giving instructions to the 12 disciples, he departed from there to teach and preach in the cities. Now when John, while in prison, heard of the works of Christ, he sent word by his disciples and said to him, are you the expected one, or shall we look for someone else? You see, Jesus answered and said to them, he said to them, so to take back this message back to John, go and report to John what you hear and see. The blind receive sight, and the lame walk, and lepers are cleansed, and the deaf hear, and the dead are raised up, and the poor have the gospel preached to them. And blessed is he who does not take offense at me. That was kind of like a nudge to John the Baptist. And so to take that back to him now, what Jesus says is he goes by and he basically tells him, look at what I'm doing. Because John is an Old Testament prophet, right? He's an Old Testament prophet, and he's seen that Christ is not taking over the kingdom. He's not. The Old Testament prophets thought that it was more heavy on taking over Jerusalem and conquering the suppressors, meaning Rome, and liberating Israel once again into a glorious kingdom. That was their mindset, even for John. Okay? And so while John was out in the wilderness in the Jordan, baptizing and talking about forgiveness of sins, at the same time, he probably had this duality in his mind, thinking that the kingdom was going to be like this. He was going to take over, and people out of being flattened by the coming of the Messiah and the conquest of the Messiah, all these people, the righteousness would come in by that way. But Jesus is basically showing that he's bringing in healing. He's doing what the Messiah is supposed to be doing. And he's demonstrating all these things that people are coming into the kingdom, they're being healed. Okay, and he says, blessed is he who does not take offense at me, right? Basically answering him, I am him. Look what I'm doing. This is what's going on. And basically, continue to have faith. So Jesus then goes on, and he seems to have John the Baptist still in his mind and his love for him, and he's saying, letting him know, what did you go out to see? Jesus began to speak of the amazingness of John the Baptist, his dedication and his zeal, right? And so The aspect of the zeal of John the Baptist is the center point to understand, I believe, that verse 12. And he's saying, what did you go out to see in the wilderness? To see a reed shaken in the wind? But what did you go out to see? A man dressed in soft clothing? Those who wear soft clothing are in kings' palaces. He says, what did you go out to see? A prophet? Yes, I tell you, and one who is more than a prophet. This is the one about whom it is written. And he talks about the prophecy, behold, I send a messenger ahead of you who will prepare your way before you. And then he says, truly, truly, truly I say to you, among those born of women, there has not arisen anyone greater than John the Baptist, yet the one who is least in the kingdom of heaven is greater than he. Right? He makes this amazing variation of showing you how amazing and holy and zealous and powerful John the Baptist was in the face of his humility, being that he wore, animal skins and ate, bugs and honey in the wilderness, and he dedicated himself to the Lord to this great extent. How many of us could actually do that for 24 hours or even 5 minutes, let alone make it a lifestyle, and just preach and dedicate himself to the coming of the Messiah? So in his zeal and faith, and yet he says that the person in heaven is going to be greater than even John the Baptist. If you could only imagine the incredible comparison that he's putting on there. From the days of John, then he said, from the days of John the Baptist until the kingdom of heaven, from the days of John the Baptist until now, the kingdom of heaven suffers violence, and violent men take it by force. Right? So in the mentality that he's talking, that John the Baptist is talking about taking over the kingdom, he's talking about people wanting to make Jesus into a king. And this whole idea of when are you taking over the kingdom, as we saw that the other disciples asked the Lord, he says, are you now going to take the kingdom? Are you now? This is their expectation. This is their understanding for a very long time. John the Baptist is no less thinking the same thing. He's thinking the same. He's got the same thing in his mind. And he says, for all the prophets in the law prophesied until John. Okay, and he starts talking about how great the spirituality behind the spirit of John the Baptist, which in itself, it takes a lot to exegete and understand that portion of it. But what he's saying here is that for the days of John the Baptist until now, the kingdom of heaven suffers violence. Now, is he talking about the kingdom of heaven that the Jews wanted in those days, the religious people? Or is he talking about the kingdom of heaven that is for his true people? Okay? And he's talking about, and violent men take it by force. Now, do those Pharisees and do those zealots actually take the kingdom by force? Is it accessible even to them? No, it's not accessible to them. It's accessible to the ones that he says that even those that are least in the kingdom are greater than John. Okay? So he's saying that, but among those, just like John, who is among them, the kingdom of heaven suffers violence, meaning that it's by violent means that they will have to take the kingdom, right? And by God's grace, not all of us have to take the kingdom by that violence, but it means a whole lot more than physical violence. It means violence of the mind. It means violence of the will, violence of whatever means necessary. You have to come. Some people have to separate from family members. Some people have to lose, let's say people from other nations and nationalities and cultures, they have to walk away from that, or seemingly among their families seem to deny their identities in their cultures and in their ways in order to come to Christ, right? And so this is easier to see when you look at other cultures outside of our American culture, because our American culture has basically accepted Christianity in a certain way, but in other cultures, it's different. It's actual violence that they have to deal with in terms of their body. Paul spoke about it, and taking and capturing, taking captive our even our thoughts to God. And he talked. The Lord also spoke about this in terms of the narrow gate. We have to press into the kingdom. This language of violence, of struggle, whether it be physical, whether it be mental, this is what he's talking about. And he's talking about believers. He's talking about the zeal, your zeal. Well, you'll take it by any means necessary, because you're like the person, he says in the parable, that finds that treasure in the field, and he's willing to sell every single thing he owns in order to buy the field. And what's in the field? The treasure of great price, right? That he found. You see, this is the same mentality. This is the same cohesive message of the scriptures, right? That we see. And I thought it was very fascinating. I kind of wanted to share that today here in True News 365. Okay, so I thought that was great. I thought that was awesome, and it just blows my mind. The Word of God, constantly, continually. Let's continue reading our book and meditating on it always, and be blessed and enriched always, edified by this beautiful thing that the Lord has left for us. Truly, we are blessed in this generation. This is a great time to be alive. Be positive about this, and let's get busy for the kingdom. Until next time, God bless.